For 3 years, the galaxy believed humanity was different, gentle, peaceful, a species that skipped war and chose diplomacy. Our ships explored, our doctors healed, our diplomats smiled, and everyone relaxed, because they thought the humans were harmless. But when terrorists struck and hostages died, the truth emerged. Humanity wasn't weak. We were patient, and patience is far more dangerous than anyone imagined. Concordia. Spire looked like a promise sanded until it gleamed. The main concourse was a glass ribbon under a braided sky of traffic lanes, cargo pods, courier darts, the occasional diplomatic barge painted with symbols that meant important, fragile, and please don't shoot this. Ambassador Leon Morales walked it in a uniform so crisp it could cut fruit. No briefcase. A data pin flush against his wrist. The only indulgence was a small notch in his belt where he hooked 2 fingers when he chose silence over a speech. It read as casual. It doubled as a break. A trio of Via magistrates coasted past on low-field skates, cloaks hovering exactly a finger width above their shoulders. They blinked both sets of lids in greeting. Leon returned the precise nod their etiquette demanded. Respectful without servile. Thrum miners, bulk-boned, graphite-scented, judged a new recycler with the seriousness of surgeons. 2 tall, scathed diplomats glided by, scales polished to an onyx glare. Their heat-shed fins said, "We are relaxed and also redundantly armored in ways the treaty does not enjoy." Everyone smiled at the human. Leon smiled back in the well-practiced way that means we are having a good day. And if not, we are very good at pretending. It worked. 3 years had taught him it would. The council chamber was a cathedral of negative space. Thin light, thinner ornament, everything meant to look neutral. At center stood Chancellor Vex Al-Seren of the Xi Compact, 4 arms open in an embrace that managed to be ceremonial without being ridiculous. "Ambassador Morales," Vex trilled, crystalline. "Humanity's restraint remains a balm to us all." Leon's smile registered warmth, not triumph. "Talking is cheaper than rebuilding." Vex's inner lids fluttered. Xi for amusement. The budget agrees. They moved through courtesies, travel, station maintenance, a very small meteor that had clipped the outer ring, and the very fast human repair crew that had printed a new strut between lunch and dessert. "Your UES Kestrel, Captain Jonah Hale, yes. Coordinated the Azimuth 3 rescue admirably," Vex added. "Jonah is good at checklists," Leon said. He didn't elaborate. Public liked headlines. Details belonged behind doors. In the report, Leon would never quote aloud. The Azimuth 3 collapse read like this: heterogeneous workforce, mismatched command habits, 5 incompatible safety protocols. Jonah had turned that into one cadence with a tunnel map drawn on a dust-filmed glove when the tablets desynced. Dr. Maya Chen, xenobiologist, opportunistic medic, triaged in a half-collapsed shaft while dictating reorder codes as if reading a grocery list. 14 hours, 113 workers, 0 fatalities. People called humans kind because the numbers looked like empathy. Leon did not mind the mistake. It saved time. An Altari undersecretary arrived with a printer's worth of paper, the analog heaviness making the contents feel important. "Ambassador, initial these. Standard renewal of berths for humanitarian craft." Leon read. He always read. The berths were in lanes that, coincidentally, intersected 3 pirate-afflicted corridors. He signed. Humanitarian craft had excellent sensors and better comms. The best nets often looked like charity. On the way to the next item, an Athari elder intercepted him.
silver skin, black eyes too large until you learned their blinking cadence. "Ambassador, I have been reading your poets," the elder said. "Dangerous habit," Leon said. "Small words. Large payload. This one. All beings are endowed with rights. Did you not fight to obtain this?" "We fought for many things," Leon said evenly. "We decided to keep that one." The elder blinked, surprised. The Athari had a theory that humans were accidents of benevolence from a planet that forgot cruelty. Humans were adept at letting that theory grow unpruned. People treated you better if they thought you were good. Wolves waited longer before they lunged. They ground through agenda. Fisheries on the Trine Shoals. Protein-rich algae. The Thrum-harvested verses. Athari reproductive studies. Tariffs. A labour dispute on Kestrel Vale involving company scrip. A note about Skaith training exercises that were not a message because messages required forms. At the chamber doors, a junior Skaith attaché approached with careful courtesy. "Ambassador, a question, if you permit, always," Leon said. "Your people refuse long escorts, yet your cargo goes untouched. You share research openly, yet your stations are placed with sightlines. You are generous. You are also positioned. Concordia is a big place," Leon said mildly. "It helps to know where the exits are." "That is an answer that is not an answer." "It's the correct one," he said, pleasant. "For now." She took it as a dismissal, not an invitation. Noted. She would be promoted quickly and become a useful problem. Leon liked to know where problems would come from. It let him pack the right tools.
He skipped a luncheon with a polite reference to scheduling density and stood at a maintenance viewport where welders crawled a seam like silver spiders. Sparks fell in a contained drift. They looked like fireflies, if you had ever had those. Above, traffic braided, a choreography of habit and economics. A supply barge from Kestrel Vale drifted past. Grain crates with cooperative seals, 2 unmarked pallets that would never appear on a public manifest, and a medical cooler with a cereal that matched nothing, because some cereals were private. His comm pinged. Commander Sarah Blake, header routine, vectors. Inside, 3 threads. 1. An agri-processor on Vale shipping fertilizer to coordinates where nothing grew. 2. A philanthropy on Helios Exchange whose grant cycles matched the movement of people who did not wish to be counted. 3. A Karkesh mid-officer ordering breaching charges as mining tools. Each entry had a confidence score and a recommended nudge. None were dramatic. Drama was what you got for waiting too long to fix small things. Leon sent 3 replies, all short. The fertilizer would trigger a routine audit by a council subcommittee that worshipped tedium. The philanthropy's shipments would be routed along a corridor that, coincidentally, ran through a pirate hunting ground currently saturated with quiet human presence. The breaching charges he filed under later. Not an emergency today. Jurisdiction would be argued soon. He preferred to win those conversations before anyone knew they'd begun. Evening cycles slid in. He walked the quieter ring, counting steps out of habit, and because counting quieted the part of his head that made lists when there were no lists left to make. The corridor lights dipped a fraction for night. Concordia's hum shifted from day's polite buzz to the lower tone of machines that had taken off their company face. He paused at a viewport open to the unfinished section of the spire. Integrity fields made the edges glow. Beyond, lanes stitched and unstitched, polite flashes, courtesy announcements. Somewhere out there, A human freighter labeled educational materials carried only educational materials and rode in a hull modified for meteor dust. It is remarkable what meteor dust will justify. His reflection in the glass looked like a man who apologized for inconvenience. He held his own gaze until the smile risked becoming a smirk. Kindness was not a disguise. It was a choice made easier by capability. It held because it could. A janitorial drone recognized his heat signature and brightened the corridor half a lumen. Leon nodded. He believed in thanking things that helped other things work. The drone chirped and glided on, satisfied. He slept 3 hours. No alarm. His body woke him at 3 a.m., the hour when stations are most honest. He made tea on a coil that voiced opinions about water temperature. He drank, standing in the doorway, watching the hall's soft pulse. The first high-tone alert came thin through the structure, a string drawn across the spire. The sound was engineered to avoid panic while obtaining attention. It did both. Leon set the cup down, mouth at the line between warm and cold. He waited to see if the tone would end after one sustained note, the drill pattern. It didn't. He smoothed the sleeve that always held a half crease at the elbow, pinned his data link, and hooked 2 fingers under his belt to keep his hand from making a fist. On the second tone, the wall-comm opened a channel he hadn't told it to. Commander Blake's voice came through, even, formal. "Ambassador Morales, we have a situation." His room felt abruptly smaller without actually changing size. Location: Helios Exchange, hostage seizure, preliminary count, 312, 47 miners. What name? They're calling themselves the Karkesh Liberation Front, demanding council withdrawal from 5 disputed systems. Ultimatum at 1400. Leon's smile did not move. His eyes did. "Understood," he said. "Call the emergency chamber. And get me Captain Jonah Hale." The emergency chamber of Concordia Spire had been designed to impress, not to contain panic. Its vaulted ceiling carried sound like a drum. Now that sound was chaos. The Altari shouted over the thrum, whose heavy fists dented their tables. The Skaith hissed, heat fins flaring in agitation. The Vire magistrates tugged their cloaks straight, a reflex that meant hold order, at least on the surface. Chancellor Vex Al-Seren lifted his 4 arms for calm. "The terrorists demand withdrawal from 5 disputed systems," he said. His crystalline voice cracked on the last word. "Kepler, Vega, Centauri, Wolf, Barnard. They claim all belong to the Karkesh General Thak Varu slammed his gauntlet on the table. They dishonor us." "They are not Karkesh. They are using your weapons," the Altari counselor shot back. Leon Morales sat in silence, smile patient, eyes thoughtful. The arguments whirled like storm winds. He let them. Details emerged between the shouting. 12 extremists, the Karkesh Liberation Front, had seized the central hub of Helios Exchange, a trade station near contested borders. 312 civilians were trapped, 47 of them children. Their broadcast was clear: surrender 5 systems, or they would begin killing. "Council forces need 3 days to prepare a safe assault," Admiral Corvex reported. "Possibly 4. "They gave us 8 hours, Elder Thien of the Athari said dryly. "Mathematics suggests we are already late." Leon finally spoke, tone even. "Have they begun?" "Not yet," Vex said. "Their deadline expires at 1400. At that moment, the chamber's lights dimmed. An incoming transmission override. The screens flared. A young Altari girl, stood in the plaza of Helios Exchange. She trembled, but her voice did not break. "Tell my parents I love them." The Karkesh extremist raised his weapon, fired. The feed cut. The silence was heavier than the shot. The Altari delegation keened. Thrum councillors hammered the tables until steel warped. General Thak Varu tore his helmet off and hurled it, cursing in untranslated syllables. Leon Morales didn't move. His smile didn't falter, but his eyes had cooled. He tapped his comm. "Priority Alpha. Get me Captain Hale." 40 seconds later, Jonah Hale appeared on screen, standing on the bridge of the UES Kestrel. Stars streaked behind him, faster than light. "How far?" Leon asked. 6 hours at current burn," Hale said. His green eyes had none of the warmth the council admired. They were weapons now. "They killed a child," Leon said. "Understood." Hale's jaw tightened. "We'll be there in 4. The link cut. Around Leon, the council dissolved into argument again. Some cried for negotiation. Others demanded immediate assault. The Athari theorized about extremist psychology. The Thrum proposed tunneling into the station's asteroid shell, as if it were stone, not steel and civilians. Leon listened, nodding when appropriate, his expression mild. He asked no questions. He pushed for no course, the model of patience. At 11:47 hours, the terrorists struck again. An elderly Thrum trader was shoved into the plaza. His grandson cried as they executed him. The boy's wail echoed through the chamber long after the feed ended. The council broke into chaos again. Leon's comm buzzed once. A 2-word message. "Almost ready." He cleared it without expression. The shouting reached a fever pitch. Admiral Corvex demanded 3 more days to plan. The Altari begged for negotiations. The Skaith muttered about swift retaliation. General Thak Varu swore oaths of blood and denial. Leon Morales remained the still point in the storm, his smile unchanged. He let them believe he was waiting for consensus. He was not. The UES Kestrel and 3 other human vessels dropped into Helios Exchange space exactly 4 hours later. On the tactical board of the Council fleet, their signatures looked wrong. Exploration corvettes weren't supposed to radiate that much power. They weren't supposed to carry shields strong enough to distort local readings. They weren't supposed to open weapon ports at all. Admiral Corvex frowned. "Impossible. These are survey ships' adjustments," Captain Jonah Hale said over the open channel. His tone was pleasant, his face calm. "We'll bring your people home." The channel cut. The human ships moved into formation. Not the loose drifting of science vessels, but the sharp geometry of hunters closing on prey. Inside the chamber, Leon Morales stood and smoothed his uniform. "Our rescue teams are ready," he said. His smile was warm, diplomatic, perfectly normal. Elder Thien blinked, disturbed. "Ambassador, surely you don't mean to act without coordination?" "Oh, not at all," Leon interrupted smoothly. "We're simply going to resolve the situation." On Helios Exchange, 12 extremists stood guard over terrified families. The plaza was ringed with barricades, weapons drawn. They were confident. They had hostages. Then the first one vanished, not shot, not dragged. One heartbeat he stood with his rifle. The next, he was prone on the floor, unconscious, with a human soldier standing over him. The others followed. Lieutenant Commander Alex Turner and his team did not breach through airlocks. They simply appeared inside sealed compartments. No alarm sounded, no hull was cut. The Karkesh guards had no warning at all. To Council sensors, it looked like human signatures were blinking in and out of existence, materializing where physics said they couldn't be. "They're not using the corridors," Admiral Corvex muttered, staring at the feed. "How are they moving through sealed bulkheads?" No one had an answer. "On another channel, Doctor." Maya Chen spoke with her usual calm, projected into the council chamber. "We've identified several injured hostages. Fractures, energy burns, acute shock responses." Elder Thien frowned. "How do you know?" "Your people haven't reached them yet." Maya tilted her head, as if puzzled by the question. "Our ships have very good sensors." The truth was more unnerving. The human vessels had been scanning every life form since arrival. Heart rates, stress levels, even neural activity. They knew which hostages were injured, which were close to collapse, which could help carry others. They also knew which extremists would break first under pressure, which would fight, which would freeze. 43 minutes after Hale's quiet order, Turner reported, "Hostages secured. All 12 targets neutralized. No friendly casualties." The council chamber fell silent, but the details disturbed them more than the outcome. The extremists were alive, but bore neat evidence of interrogation, though they had never woken. Someone had extracted information directly from their minds. Admiral Corvex asked Hale how. "We wanted to make sure there weren't other cells planning something similar," Hale said, casual as a weather report. "But you questioned unconscious prisoners," Corvex pressed. "We have methods." Hale's tone suggested the subject was both simple and finished. Meanwhile, Maya Chen treated the hostages. Her equipment looked like portable medkits, but she healed injuries that should have taken days in a hospital. Fractures knitted in minutes, burns sealed without scars. When asked, she smiled brightly. "We've been making some improvements in our medical techniques." General Thakvaru demanded custody of the terrorists. "They are Karkesh," he thundered. "They were," Hale said calmly. "Now they're terrorists who attacked civilians under our protection. That makes them our problem." The phrasing landed like a hammer. Under our protection, not allies, not council citizens. The hostages had been redefined by human fiat. Back in the chamber, Leon Morales faced the storm of questions. Chancellor Vex Al-Seren spoke for the room. "Ambassador, your vessels displayed capabilities we were unaware of." Leon's smile didn't move. "Not military capabilities, Chancellor. Exploration tools, very useful for dangerous environments. But the weapons, the teleportation," Elder Thien began. "All part of exploration," Leon said smoothly. "You'd be surprised how many hostile life forms we've encountered." The chamber erupted in voices, fear, confusion, anger. Leon Morales simply waited, smile warm, posture relaxed. To the council, it looked like patience. To him, it was a countdown. The operation was already over. 3 days after Helios Exchange, the council convened under the pretense of clarification. The chamber's light felt colder than usual, as if the spire had asked itself an uncomfortable question and was waiting to hear whether it needed a new answer. Delegations arrived early and spoke in tones that implied they were late. The Altari carried grief like a physical weight. The Thrum were too still, which for Thrum meant the plates of their knuckles didn't click. The Skaith wore the polished calm of people who were keeping their heat under armor. The Via straightened hems that were already straight. The Xi Compact took the center seat and made equidistance look merciful. Leon Morales sat where he always sat, hands folded, uniform immaculate. This time the courtesy field around him measured like a boundary. Chancellor Vex Al-Seren began, voice careful. Ambassador Morales, the Council wishes to understand what we saw. Leon's smile was warm and ordinary. Of course. Admiral Corvex didn't wait for niceties. Your survey ships opened weapon ports. They projected shields at military densities. Your teams appeared inside sealed compartments. And after the fact, our medics report unusual results. He paused at unusual as if the word might break. These are not characteristics of exploration craft. Not concealed, Leon said mildly. Undiscussed. You never inquired about our defensive tooling. We didn't volunteer a catalogue. General Thakvaru leaned forward until his armor touched the table. You questioned prisoners who were asleep, he said, as if reading a charge sheet. We want them. They are Karkesh. They were, Leon said politely. Now they're terrorists who harmed civilians under our protection. That makes them our responsibility for a while. The phrase "under our protection" moved around the room like a draft. Delegates shifted, some to face Leon, some to avoid facing him at all. The words had reassigned ownership. People noticed when ownership moved. Elder Thien spoke softly, which was how the Athari did it when the floor mattered. Ambassador, your tools. Teleportation, interrogation without waking, medical techniques that knit bone in minutes. You ask us to accept these as benign exploration aids. I'm asking you to accept that exploration tends to puncture polite expectations, Leon said. The universe does not file forms before it tries to kill you. The chamber tipped toward the argument again, language layered, fear, accusation, diplomacy, theater. Leon let it crest, then raised a hand just high enough to be seen without seeming to reach. Perhaps context will help, he said. A hollow bloomed over the chamber. No swell of anthem, no flag, just earth, blue and white and crowded, rotating with the insistent indifference of a place that had weathered everything and learned to keep doing it. As the sphere turned, the projections split into overlays, storm tracks that stacked like a deck of knives, fault lines stitched through continents like old scars, eruption plumes, pathogen trees that forked into forests of failure, food webs dense enough to tangle anything that tried to move through them. Home, Leon said. Class 12 on most Deathworld scales, higher gravity than is friendly, weather that collects your plans and makes them decorative, apex predators, microorganisms whose hobbies include ending civilizations. We learned coordination because it's the only way to make it to lunch and then do it again tomorrow. He let the overlays cycle, stone tools to satellites in too few frames, agriculture to cities to skies full of traffic that forgot how to be afraid. Mixed in, without commentary, came still images no one mistook, formations, logistics, the architecture of organized force. We value peace because we spent a long time purchasing the option, Leon said. The receipt is difficult to look at. We don't require you to look. We do require you to understand why we keep it Vex Al-Seren's inner lids flickered. How many of your exploration vessels carry the capabilities we saw at Helios? Leon didn't blink. All of them. The word sat neatly on the table. It didn't echo. It didn't need to. The hollow shifted. Not ships now, but a map of the last 3 years, lines connecting points in patterns that had looked, until this morning, like coincidence. Trade routes that also formed a net. Human research stations parked where lanes braided. Humanitarian berths that happened to sit on the mouths of pirate throats. 3 years of friendship, Leon said easily. We placed ourselves where help would travel fastest.
Help, Admiral Corvex repeated, as if calibrating the word against a new scale. On cue, because Leon liked clockwork. Doctor. Maya Chen appeared on a secondary pane. She was in a lab, hair tied back, smile bright as a safety poster. Charts hovered beside her like well-behaved birds.
"I finished a comparative species assessment," Maya said, cheerfully academic. "Behavioral levers, physiological constraints, socio-cultural resonances. It's designed to improve triage, message framing during crises, and cooperation outcomes." The charts scrolled, not vulnerabilities exactly, though anyone could name them that if they wanted to be offended. The Karkesh over-indexed on direct challenge. The Altari carried family bond signaling in neurons that made certain appeals unusually effective. The Athari would follow an elegant problem off a cliff if you made the edges clean. Elder Thene watched with a controlled stillness. "You studied us like specimens." "Like patients," Maya said, as if clarifying a dosage. "The overlap is actionable." The pane closed. Another opened. Commander Sarah Blake appeared, expression composed, diction precise. She had the look of someone who could fold a map with one hand and make it lie flat. "For risk management," Sarah said, "we run full-spectrum monitoring, open and closed comms, procurement anomalies, traffic density shifts, rhetoric analysis. We track movement of materiel and people correlated to harms to civilians. Outputs feed interdiction, audits, aid routing." "You've been spying on everyone," Vex said, as if stating a weather report that kept ruining parades. Sarah considered. "We've been watching for wolves," she said. "It's efficient to keep the flock intact." "And the flock is?" Elder Thene asked. Sarah didn't look at Leon to check the line. They had rehearsed this by never rehearsing it. "Everyone," she said pleasantly. 3 years is long enough for friendship to become policy." The word everyone did echo. People heard the size of it and did quick arithmetic on what it implied about choices. General Thak Varu's voice came as if through his teeth. "And if we refuse your protection?" Leon let the question sit. It did useful work while it waited. When he finally answered, his tone stayed gentle. "Then we would be disappointed," he said. "Disappointed humans are efficient at making problems stop." He did not harden the language. He had learned early that soft threat carried farther and stuck better. In transcripts it sounded like civility. In memory it felt like a door closing quietly. Admiral Corvex stared at the rotating Earth. "How long?" he asked, not taking his eyes off the storms. "Have you been capable of what we saw?" Leon could have said always. He settled for the truth that travelled well. "Long enough to choose not to use it gratuitously." "You eliminated pirate fleets," Vex said, the facts assembling now that the light had been angled correctly. "Slave routes have vanished. Several extremist cells have ceased to function." "We dislike it when people hurt the helpless," Leon said. "We don't mind being disliked by the people who do." Elder Thene touched 2 fingers together, a gesture that meant he was thinking faster than he could speak. "What about control? You understand that the optics of this, your capacity, could destabilize trust." "Trust is a function of predictability," Leon said. "You will find us extremely predictable. We prioritize civilians. We share. We don't take what we can keep being given. We sit in meetings. We fix commas before they become wars. And when someone insists on becoming a wolf, we make the wolf an old story." The chamber absorbed that. Even the Skaith, who had a cultural allergy to poetry, understood the grammar.
Vex finally folded his hands. "What do you want from the Council now, Ambassador?" "Exactly what we have," Leon said. "Cooperation. Access. A seat where our work is made easier by visibility rather than harder by ritual." "That sounds like power," General Thakvaru muttered. Leon's smile didn't move. "Power is the thing you notice when you are trying to move someone who prefers not to be moved. We prefer alignment. It wears better silence again, but different. Less frightened, more mathematical. People were counting costs and dividends." "Very well," Vex said at last. "We will consider formalizing humanity's role across committees and commands. There will be votes." "There are always votes," Leon said pleasantly. "We like them." The session adjourned on paper. No one actually stood for several beats. Then chairs scraped, and the ring of alcoves slowly emptied. Delegates stopped to straighten hems that did not need straightening, to whisper over notes that would not help, to glance toward Leon and away again before their eyes landed long enough to register as staring.
Leon packed nothing. He had brought nothing but himself. He nodded to the janitorial drone as it floated in, and it chirped back, pleased to be thanked. On his way out, he paused at the viewport. The spire's lanes braided and unbraided beyond the integrity fields, thin lights threading into a net he knew better than his own reflection. The comm on his wrist quietly delivered 3 updates. One audit concluded with fines and a sudden desire for compliance. One philanthropy had rerouted cargo under supervision. It found inexplicably attentive. One Karkesh officer had cancelled an order for mining tools and requested reassignment. Small things, done early. He stood a moment longer until his reflection resolved into a man in an immaculate uniform with a very ordinary smile. Polite, predictable, capable of ending a problem before it learned its own name. Then he left the glass and went to prepare for the next session. General Thakvaru did not believe. He had heard the chamber words, had seen the recordings, had even read the data his own analysts whispered over like prayers. But disbelief is cheaper than fear, and cheaper still than changing doctrine. They spared the extremists, Thak argued before the Karkesh War Council. If they were truly dangerous, they would have made examples. They hide behind soft power. They bluff. The council muttered agreement. Wolves preferred to believe the shepherd unarmed. So the Karkesh sent 12 warships to Kestrel Vale, a human colony known for grain silos and little else. 2 million civilians lived under its sky, children who chased drones through wheat taller than themselves. The fleet gave them 4 hours to surrender. Administrator Beth Cooper, a woman who kept ledgers in order because chaos irritated her, sent a single reply. "We decline your offer." The Karkesh opened fire. Their beams struck the planetary shield and vanished like sparks against water. No flicker, no stress readout, nothing. Thakvaru stared at his tactical screen. "What kind of defense?" "Sir," his officer said, pale under chitin. "Our weapons are registering like candles against a star." Intelligence had sworn Kestrel Vale was undefended farmland. Intelligence had lied. Then Jonah Hale's voice filled the channel. Calm. Even. "General Varu, cease fire. Withdraw." Thak spun his command chair. "Where are you, human?" "Right behind you." Sensors scanned. Nothing. Empty space. "Closer look," Hale suggested. Suddenly the screens bloomed with contacts. Dozens of human ships, ghost signatures emerging where the void had been empty a heartbeat before. They had been there for 6 days, watching, recording. "You were in Karkesh space," Thak said, voice breaking. "We watch everyone," Hale replied. It keeps the peace. On Kestrel Vale's surface, children kept playing tag among the silos. They did not even know they were under attack. A larger human vessel arrived then, shimmering into existence as if the universe had just remembered it. Admiral Ria Sato addressed the Karkesh general with the same polite smile Leon Morales wore on Concordia. General Varu, you fired on civilians. That is a problem, Thak rallied his voice. We demand the right to contest borders. You forfeit rights when you open fire on children, Sato said, pleasant. We'll handle it. The Karkesh fleet vanished. Not exploded, not wrecked. One moment, 12 warships occupied the void. The next, there was empty silence. Thak Varu found himself sitting alone at a table in a white room with no doors. Admiral Sato regarded him over a datapad. What ships? My fleet, Thak roared. 12 vessels, 3,000 souls. Sato checked the pad. No record of such vessels. No missing crews. Your government never authorized an attack. And when Thak's memory buckled under her words, he realized she wasn't lying. Humanity had not destroyed his fleet. They had erased it. He awoke hours later in his quarters, convinced he'd blacked out during a routine patrol. His staff had no recollection of any lost ships. His family had never known the names of crew who no longer existed. But somewhere deep in Karkesh intelligence, alarms rang without evidence to silence them. 2 days later, Dr. Maya Chen published her final paper, Comparative Threat Assessment, Galactic Species Analysis and Response Protocols. It read like cheerful science. Graphs, charts, tidy notes. But each chapter outlined exactly how to unmake a species. The Karkesh, predictable to direct challenges, brittle under deception. The Altari, emotional leverage through family units. The Athari, so entranced by puzzles they'd ignore obvious dangers. The Skaith, physiologically resilient, but culturally incapable of improvisation. Her conclusion was simple. If conflict ever came, humanity would win rapidly, through superior coordination, technology, and intimate knowledge of every other race. Fortunately, she wrote, humanity preferred peace. The last paragraph was worse than the data. Note, this analysis covers only public knowledge. Classified human capabilities are significantly more advanced. Every council chamber in the galaxy slept badly that week. The council reconvened within days. The motion was short. Humanity would be granted permanent seats on all major bodies: the High Tribunal, Military Command, Economic Council, Judicial Review Board. The vote was unanimous. Even Thak Varu voted yes, not remembering why his hands shook. Ambassador Leon Morales accepted with his usual warm smile. Humanity is grateful for this trust. We will continue to be good neighbors and helpful friends. The applause that followed was polite, brittle. No one slept easier. That night, alone in his quarters, Leon stood at his viewport. The stars glittered like ice chips scattered across black glass. He let himself smile just slightly, the kind that never made it to meetings. The galaxy was safe now, under protection, whether it wanted to be or not. The gentle monsters in human skin would make sure of it.